Let me know when John's on. If he is not on early, I'm going to do a capital report.
Property that's outdated and needs thousands of dollars in repairs? Great, I'll buy it. I'm a private real estate investor who can solve your real estate problems fast for cash. Do you want to sell and just be done with it? Okay, great. I buy vacant properties, boarded up houses, pre-foreclosures, and inherited properties. I also buy apartment buildings, rental portfolios, divorce homes. I even buy my tenant won't pay me the rent houses. I look forward to solving your real estate problems today. Give me a call for an all-cash offer at 614-362-2000, 614-362-2000.
In a hurry and need to see a doctor? The Woodsdale Health Center and Walk-In Clinic is located across from Little Caesars on National Road. Open 7 to 7 Monday through Friday. Patients can receive primary care, treatment of minor illnesses and injuries, wellness visits and physicals. There's also a lab draw station open from 8 to noon weekdays. A division of Wheeling Hospital, the Woodsdale Health Center is led by family physician Dr. Michael Wilson. Call 304-234-1971. They'll take good care of you.
The weather will affect you every day.
Okie doke, thank you.
You plan your day. 36 degrees here in Wheeling. On TV, online, on your phone, our experienced meteorologists are here to help you prepare for what's ahead. Watch the Storm Tracker 7 Weather Team with Zach Petty, Aaron Myler, and me, Dr. Dave Walker. Weather coverage you can count on, working for you.
Hello, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm the Storm Tracker, Darnell Foster. With a look at your local weather forecast for your Friday. Partly sunny skies, a daytime high near 52 degrees. The overnight low of 27 under mainly clear skies. Plenty of sunshine for your Saturday with highs in the lower 60s. Have yourself a great day, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
He became a different man the moment he found out what day it is.
What day is it? It's Friday.
It is Friday. What?
Oh, you know it.
Thank God it's Friday.
Come on, let's take this thing up a notch, Bryson.
See what I did there?
Trying to throw with Joseph. Bryson. Pretty cool, huh?
So you partying hard or hardly party?
This weekend?
Partying our butts off.
Well, what are we waiting for?
Let's get this party started. It's showtime. Hit it.
Conversations you care about with people you know. This is the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe, brought to you in part by Wheeling Hospital.
You know, the transposition of just a couple of letters can make a big difference. I'm looking at my notes from Hoppy Kirchwell this morning for his upcoming show, coming up 10:06 today. When I'm done, we turn things over to Kirchwell for the statewide talk line. And his first guest should be interesting, by the way. Ernest Blevins, who is historian for the West Virginia Sons of Confederate Veterans. Now, as you know, there is a monument bill pending in the legislature that is designed to prohibit Confederate statues from being taken down, Confederate plaques from being removed. It's designed to protect all statuary in public forums from being changed because someone doesn't like the Confederacy. What I find interesting is, so the note that Hoppy sends out today is Ernest Blevins, historian of the Western Sons of Confederate Veterans, know the Monument Protection Act. Now, I think he means on, because I'm guessing the Sons of Confederate Veterans probably support the Monument Protection Act, but that simple transposition of letters from, instead of O-N, he typed N-O. Now I'm wondering, are they, because when I first saw it, I thought, that's kind of weird. They're voting no, they want no on the Monument Protection Act. Now I'm thinking he just transposed letters. That's why you got to be careful about how you type things. That's coming up today, statewide talk line. Also on talk line today, Tony Caridi on the WVU Morehead State game, which is set for this evening, which we will be carrying, right, Biffy?
Yes, we will have that right after Wheeling Central at Weirton. That'll be tonight at 7:30, and then following Wheeling Central and Weirton, it'll be right into the pregame of Morehead State and West Virginia. West Virginia probably going to get started, depending on how the games go. Could be a little before 10, could be a little after 10, but we will have pregame after Wheeling Central and Weirton. And the name to look out for tonight for Morehead State, I'll give you the last name. It is Broom. That is the kid from Morehead State, tall guy. Look for him and West Virginia's Derek Culver tonight to go at each other. So that'll be the name you hear a lot tonight from Morehead State. Broom is the kid's name.
How many puns we made about Broom is making a clean sweep?
Oh, I'm sure there will be plenty tonight. So, yeah, that's what we have for tonight.
So we have high school and college basketball for you this evening here on the Watchdog. So Hoppy's going to be talking and previewing that with Tony Caridi today on statewide talk line from 10 till noon. Always at noon, of course, it's the WTRF TV7 headlines live from their anchor desk. And then at noon on WVLY, AM 1370, FM 97.7. It's a Friday, so you know what it is.
Oh, Dancing with Dr. G.
Yes, indeedy. This Friday, the Donnie Gilbert Radio Show, once again live from Quaker Steak and Lube in the Highlands. Scott Rieger will be the co-host, talking about all that's going on in Marshall County. Brandon Tucker will be discussing the new Genesis Center in Moundsville. Little live music for you. The John Marshall High School Percussion Ensemble performing live in the Brickyard at Quaker Steak and Lube from 1 to 1:30. And then the Watchdog NCAA basketball analyst Brian Beresford will talk about the big tournament underway. The show airs today on the Watchdog, FM 97.7 and AM 1370 from noon until 2. You want to check that out. Good way to maybe kick off your weekend of March Madness time, right, Biffy?
Yes, it is. Again, my favorite time of the year.
And I suspect that on AM 1600 WKKX, Billy DeFabio will probably be talking about March Madness, among other things, as well. It is tournament time with so many games going on. You don't want to just bet a single game. And that's why the betting parlays are set up on our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Great way to combine bets from different games for an even bigger win. And right now, FanDuel is ready to help if your parlay doesn't go as planned. They will give you up to $25 back in site credit if your parlay of 3 legs or more falls 1 leg short. That's 1 parlay per day, each day of the tournament, for new and existing users. And that is just one of the reasons why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook app. They're always hooking us up with new ideas and new ways to win. The app is easy to use. I tell you that all the time. They have all kinds of bet options to choose from. Always exclusive, always on promotions. And when you win, you get paid in as little as 24 hours. If you've been thinking about signing up, now's a perfect time to sign up for FanDuel. Give it a shot. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Use my name, Monroe, in the promo code box. That way they know we sent you here on the Watchdog Morning Show. And I have to tell you, you got to be 21 or older. You must be physically present in Pennsylvania or West Virginia. The refund is issued as a non-withdrawable site credit. It expires in 7 days. Maximum refund is $25. Terms do apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. If you have a gambling problem in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net or call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's head over to the newspaper office and check in with newspaper editor extraordinaire John McCabe. Good morning, John.
Howard, how are you doing today?
Good. What do you think of this monument bill?
Well, I don't know if you read. We had an editorial on it today, and I think it's a waste of time. I think it's a colossal waste of time. Number one, I don't know if you actually read the bill, but when you get into the bill, they call the Civil War. They don't go as far as to call it the War of Northern Aggression, but they call it the War between the states. Yes, the war between the states. I think in a year when we have, every year is important, but this year seems to have some added importance, particularly with how things have started out, to be spending time protecting monuments that just, I don't understand it. I don't understand I just don't understand why waste any time on this at all.
But it is in line with, and this bothers me, I think it probably bothers you too, the desire by the legislature to consolidate all power in themselves. If individual communities want to deal with with monuments, that should be their business. It shouldn't be a state mandate that you have to keep those monuments up. The Senate passed a bill yesterday, I think it was yesterday, that said that no city or county could have labor standards better than the state standards. Minimum wage is one example, but any others as well. Again, they're trying to set the state standard for everything. We've talked about the user fee. We've talked about some other things where they've been trying to insist that cities and towns and counties can't act on their own.
Well,
that whole trend really bothers me.
When you look around at the folks who are there right now, I'm not surprised by some of it. I wish I understood better the full agenda of this group. But I don't. How do you say that how can you mandate from Charleston that the labor market in down in Paw Paw, we'll say, for example, is the same as the labor market in Morgantown. I mean, if Morgantown City Council, people who are elected by the folks who live in Morgantown, decide that the minimum wage in Morgantown needs to go to $10 an hour instead of $8.75, because that's what the business is, or whatever, that's what the market calls for. Mm-hmm. Why is it someone in Charleston's right? I mean, I know why it's their right. That's the way the Constitution in this state is written. But why get involved in what's best for Morgantown? Why get involved with what's best for Wheeling? That is so much, again, as we'll talk here in a minute, when you make decisions in Wheeling, as the council is doing now with the colleges, you have local ramifications to those decisions. So that's how it's supposed to be. There's no ramifications for the folks in Charleston for the decisions that they may or may not make concerning how Wheeling runs its affairs. I mean, there really are none. So I just don't understand, after, again, Republicans in prior years really working hard to enact home rule and to get local control back to cities and counties and start pushing that decentralization of power in Charleston, which never worked well. And now all of a sudden there's this, let's bring everything right back at a time when, again, for cities to, for our state to be dynamic, you cannot have centralized control in Charleston. It can't work. You can't say from Charleston that every city and every county has to have the same internet speeds so that there's no one's left behind. I mean, it's just not possible. And that's not a bill that's out there. I'm just using that as an example. But you cannot legislate a state of 2 million people that is as unique as our state is in a lot of ways, with our border counties that have much different economies than what even Charleston has in the middle of the state. You just can't. It doesn't work well, and it's disappointing that that's what this session is turned into in a lot of ways.
And there have been numerous bills. This one I just mentioned was one that I saw yesterday, but there have been numerous bills. There's the no plastic straw bill. Mm-hmm. There was a great demand for a bill against plastics, banning plastic straws, or not banning plastic straws, or whatever you want to call it. It's interesting, though, that the legislature, John, if you think about this, they are trying to set the state standard for everybody in the state. At the same time, there was a bill pending, I don't think it's going to go anywhere, that says that the law of West Virginia is the supreme law of the land. Mm-hmm. And that no federal law can ever oversee it. That's not a good word, but you know what I mean. So it's as if they want to set their standards for literally everything. Again, I don't agree with a lot of what they're doing, but there are things that can be done, and this whole we want all the power ourselves is kind of, I think, a little bit goofy.
I would agree.
Let's talk about what's happening in the city of Wheeling. This was the most interesting.
Well, let's start with Cliff Slager. I think it'd be better to start with Cliff. I think that's a story that, unfortunately, not to say hasn't gotten a lot of play this week, but hasn't. I think is really, Cliff was. And personally, to me, Cliff was one of the first councilmen I started covering. And I think that, when you really look back at his career as fire chief and then 2 terms as a councilman, and then his time over in Belmont County, just a guy that really loved this area, really loved Wheeling. You recall, and I was, before I moved up here, but it was, right after he retired, and right as he was running for council, I believe, when the former Imperial Display Building caught on fire, mm-hmm. and he, as a retired chief, quickly took over the scene, I'm sure much to Steve Johnston's chagrin, and was photographed on, I think that was on a Sunday morning, if I remember correctly, Howard, photographed up on the ladder, directing the fire, and which was a great, a campaign tool for him as well. But really think his time in Wheeling, and again, he and, for me, that council of Cliff and Babe Schmidt and Mike Now and Vern Seals, and Brett Bush was in and out of, some others. That was a really good council. I think a really thoughtful council. I think that, when I compare it to councils afterward, and I don't have any reference for anything before, but I think, I look at that council and just the way they approached things and the willingness they had to argue on council floor for their positions. Not disrespectfully.
What they would do is actually have discussion.
Yes.
About issues on the council floor, which we've really gotten away from in recent years.
Well, that changed starting in 2008 when Andy McKenzie came in and made it clear to others that we'll work everything out via email and talking beforehand, which isn't very kosher. But and then when we vote, it's everyone's on board. They had very few. If you look from 2008 on, there's been very few split votes. A lot of split votes back in that 96 to 2008 period, 2004 even. Just where again, I remember when they first made the change with how they allocated CDBG funds. That came out of nowhere and was a huge issue. And I remember before the meeting, Babe Schmidt walks over to me and says, "Hey, this is going to be a good one. I'm going to be bringing some stuff up." And he and Cliff, just sat there and in a sense, not respectfully argued their points with primarily it was with Vern and I can't remember who else, who thought that they should continue and just give a lump allocation to everyone, and and others convinced them no, we would be better served, and our social service agencies would be better served if we gave them a more significant amount based upon their work. So I just thought it would be good not to let it get lost in the shuffle. And Cliff, I think, was a great public servant and a really good guy. Just a really good Wheeling guy.
And he was the quintessential fire chief, too. With no disrespect to Steve Johnson, whom I liked, and Larry Holmes is great as well. They live in the shadow, I think, of Cliff Sliger.
Yeah.
I mean, Cliff Sliger still is the chief. You know what I mean? I mean, they both have done a tremendous job. Steve did a tremendous job. Larry's doing a great job. But I truly believe you live in the shadow of Cliff Sliger. He was the fire chief. And at least to me, he always will be.
Steve is Steve. I think from an administrator standpoint, Steve was a great administrator and a wonderful human being, and of course still is. He's still working for the city now in a different capacity, but just a more he's a more subdued person. He's quiet, more thoughtful. Cliff was, I'm not going to say loud, but he was, he had a strong voice and a strong personality, and and it's hard to follow in those. I think Steve was a really, really good choice to follow in those footsteps, though, because he was a guy who got things done. He didn't try to become Cliff Sliger. He said
he was different enough. He was different enough from Cliff that he wasn't perpetually being compared to him, but rather he was the next guy that came along. That's really important. Yeah.
So no, I just thought I wanted to make sure we got to that today, because sometimes you get caught up in things and you realize, but at the end of the show you can only spend 30 seconds. But I thought Cliff was on council at a time when councilors did what I think the voters want them to do, and that is openly debate issues. There's no friends and family plan going on or anything like that.
Yeah, I think it's exactly right. That was a really good council, as you pointed out.
It really was.
I was around before you were covering council. Some of the earlier councils that I covered were just, God help me, were just unbelievable. I still remember when Bob Sadler threw a quarter in the middle of the council chambers one time and said, "There's a quarter. Call someone who cares."
And there's a middle ground that always has to be there. You can't be you go back into the 70s and things that people I've talked to and things I've read. It was almost a sideshow at times, and you can't have it always be that. But you can't have it always be like, in some ways the last several councils have been, where, and I think it may just be the advice they're getting not to say, really to keep the public portions of the meetings very subdued, not much discussion. I mean, there's discussion, but, you don't often see disagreement anymore. And I'm not picking on anyone. It's just a different council, different personalities, no less effective, no more effective. Other than, I think, airing the public's business always in public is the right thing to do.
I was going to do the Cliff Sliger thing at the end just because I usually save some of the the non-newsy stuff again. The other thing I was going to tie to it, also throw in at the end, but let's get a quick mention. Congratulations to Wheeling Park High School's speech and debate team for win number 41.
Yeah, that was, again, this year, much different circumstances. Given that they had to do it all virtually, so it made it a lot more challenging. You got to see, I think doing it virtually, you really got a chance, every team got a chance to present its best. There wasn't that potential slip up in front of the judges. So really a good, just again, what a wonderful program. You go back to Fran Schoolcraft, you go now to Bill Cornforth and his assistants, and and really credit. We don't maybe give enough credit to the students and their parents for the time that they put into this. I know the speech and debate team has been meeting throughout the year, no matter what. They've been meeting virtually and when they can in person to rehearse and practice, and the dedication there, because again, nobody wants to let their teammates down, number one, but nobody wants to let down this 41-year tradition of winning in an event that is, it's not football. This is every year. These kids they spend, countless hours preparing after school, etc., getting ready for. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by my phone. So, getting ready for these, for these events, and just, as you get older in life and you start to understand, and the thing, the lessons that these kids learn from being part of the speech and debate team, not only in carrying on traditions and in winning and presenting yourself, but just the life lessons that you come out of there with, and being able to speak very well publicly and handle yourselves in public situations and deal with people and, of different, all different things. So it really is, I think, a testament to, Wheeling Park High School and the students, parents, the teachers. 41 years is an impressive feat.
And it really is not an easy thing to do. I was, before there was a speech and debate team, before there was a Wheeling Park High School, when I was a student at Triadelphia High School, I was involved in what was called then the Junior Town Meeting of the Air, which was a debate program. And by the way, we won that year. But but the amount of effort that goes into preparing for a good debate, and then I was on the debate team briefly at WVU as well. I mean, it ain't easy to prepare for a good debate, and I give these kids a lot of credit. John, let's do a break. You can check your phone if you need to.
Very good.
And I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, I do want to get into this Wheeling Council, the Friends and Family Plan, or whatever else. I think you and I disagree a little bit about this. I'm not sure, so we'll talk about it coming up next here on the Watchdog Morning Show. John McCabe is with me. It's our regular Friday roundtable, Ohio Valley News Week in Review. Let's check Metro News right now.
The Metro News Update is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
and 8 losses. A Steeler note, the Steelers have re-signed defensive end Chris Wormley to a 2-year deal. Hey, be safe out there. Please be considerate of others. And don't forget to check on the elderly. I'm Bill DeFabio on sports, and we are, and always will be, the Watchdog.
Listen to the Bill DeFabio Variety Show with Bill DeFabio and Lola Miller. Weekdays noon to 2 on the Valley's only network dedicated to live and local talk radio. The Watchdog.
CA House Music has all the gear to make your music legendary. With all the best gear, including Fender, Epiphone, Yamaha, and more, CA House will have you rocking in no time. Get the most for your money with everyday low prices. And we meet or beat internet pricing. Play before you buy and let our product specialists help you pick out the instrument that's right for you. CA House Music, supporting local musicians since 1872. Play music for life.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SavedByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SavedByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SavedByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Over the years, you've brought opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them, just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
Wheeling Coin and Hobby on 10th Street in Wheeling, next to the Bridge Tavern in downtown Wheeling, wants to buy any and all unwanted gold and silver jewelry. They are paying top dollar for 10, 14, 18, and 22 karat gold plus 925 sterling silver. They also want to buy collectible coins and paper money from before 1933. Wheeling Coin and Hobby is open daily from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Coin and Hobby, 304-232-8430, and add them on Facebook.
Hey, I'm going to the kitchen. Can I grab you a Coors Light?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Huh. I never knew there was a zip line in my fridge. Hey!
Okay, thank you. Up to Bob. So he doesn't. Okay. I want to tease the weekend sports before I get back to John, too. Oh, and come to think of it, didn't we have a change in, you got that thing? Okay, all right. Okay. That's a good question. That's, what is that? BSB, softball? Baseball. I think we can, I don't know. You talk to Kayleen.
The Upper Ohio Valley and beyond. Dilly's Bottom trusts the Watchdog.
Here's a look at the Ohio Valley local news week in review with newspaper editor John McCabe and Howard Monroe.
Still 30 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport with a little bit of wind blowing around, making it still feel, well, it feels like 19 now, 19 degrees outside. It hit 47 today, and then into the 60s the rest of the weekend. Going to be beautiful sunny days. It is a beautiful sunny day right now, but it's going to be really sunny and warm all weekend long. Speaking of the weekend, Biffy, we do have a couple of games coming up this weekend. Want to make sure before I get back to John that we talk about what people can look forward to sports-wise this weekend here on the Watchdog.
Yes, and again, it starts tonight at 7:30. Wheeling Central making the trip to Weirton to take on the Red Riders. And then following that game, it will be West Virginia and Morehead State in the NCAA tournament. And then on Saturday, we actually start West Virginia baseball as they will be taking on Coastal Carolina at 2:30. And we were originally supposed to have Trinity making the trip to take on Wheeling Central Saturday night. That game has been postponed due to a COVID issue at Trinity.
We're still getting COVID cancellations, huh?
Yeah, still even in basketball season. So COVID issue with the with Trinity. So they have postponed their game, which was supposed to be tomorrow night at 7:30 against Wheeling Central. So, but Wheeling Central and Weirton still on for tonight.
All right, so that's a bit of what's coming up this weekend sports-wise. Also want to, I meant to talk about this earlier. Let me quickly tell you, go to our website, watchdognetwork.com. Have a new poll that went up today, and I'd love to get you to vote in it because I'm really intrigued by this. Are you willing to pay higher taxes to get an income tax reduction in West Virginia? That's the poll over at watchdognetwork.com. That's the issue that we've got dealing with at the legislative level. Governor Justice says that the sexiest thing we can possibly do is reduce our income taxes, and that will bring people into the state. But in order to compensate for the loss of revenue, he's dramatically increasing taxes all the way around. Are you willing to pay higher taxes to get an income tax reduction in West Virginia? Go vote in our poll. John McCabe is here with me from the Ogden newspapers here in the local area, the newspapers, the Intelligencer and News Register. John, let's talk about the meeting this week, the Wheeling Council meeting. It was. I'm trying to think what words I want to use. It certainly was high tension. Mm-hmm. It was aggressive on the part of Dr. Mosser, speaking for all three of the local colleges and universities. In the words of council members, it was disappointing. I don't know what other words to use, but it certainly was one of the more interesting meetings I've ever seen in terms of people from respected leaders of the community having things to say to council. What was your take on that meeting?
Well, my take on the meeting, I thought, I think there are legitimate issues that Daniel Mosser brought up in his speech. I think his presentation went too far, and we have an editorial tomorrow that really addresses this really lengthy. Yeah, I think that's the easiest. You just have to start with that. He went too far. There's no two ways around it. But when you get into some of the things, okay, so let's just go friends and family plan. We made a slight joke about it earlier. Okay, some people in town knew Chad Thalman and Robin Capehart were related at one time by marriage. Many didn't. So do I think that should have caused the vice mayor to recuse himself? No. Do I think the vice mayor should have publicly disclosed that on January 5th when they voted? 100%. Because, again, if he's getting advice that says that you don't have to recuse himself, that advice needs to be tempered with the fact, but you should disclose it. There's no family plan if he stands up on January 5th when they're getting ready to vote and says, for the record, I've gotten this advice I don't have, but Robin Capehart, who sits here in front of us, is a former uncle. Doesn't influence, he's no longer related to me, has nothing to do with my vote here today, but just wanted to make sure for the public record that was stated. That was a mistake that they didn't disclose that, or that he didn't disclose that.
I won't totally disagree, and I don't want to be here defending Chad. I won't totally disagree, and I think that you're right. Being allowed to vote doesn't mean that you shouldn't disclose the possibility of a conflict. I've had to do that on the Planning Commission at least one time where I have said I'm not going to vote or discuss, but here's the reason I'm not. So you're right about that. I also think that at this stage of the game, though, this is a non-binding memorandum of understanding. This is really just a let's start the process memorandum of understanding. I think I would feel differently if this was voting to give to Bluefield State any kind of tax credit, tax help, free discounts, what have you. Let's move, because I hadn't really thought of this much before when this came up, but as this has continued to roll and you start to think a little more deeply on it, so let's look at it from the local college's perspective. So, and I'm going to approach this from a couple angles. So we know Daniel Mosser at West Virginia Northern, this is a block from his campus. Okay. Jenny Favit, it's not all that far. Again, she's running a university that's been well documented, is in really perilous financial shape right now. And then you have Franklin Evans,
brand new at the job at West Liberty. First full week on the job, and he's hit with this without any indication whatsoever. I think that was yet another, I think that was another mistake. That was the other really big mistake that council made, is not, at some point not bringing the local colleges into the discussion before they signed this memorandum. That should have been done out of courtesy and respect. Imagine, and the reason I say that is imagine this. Imagine Pittsburgh City Council on next Tuesday is their regular meeting day, let's just say, for example. What happens if they sign a memorandum of understanding with Gordon Gee and West Virginia University to open a satellite campus in downtown Pittsburgh? Do you not think Pitt is going to be very upset over that, for being blindsided by that? Or if Ohio State and Michigan, if Columbus let Michigan put a satellite campus in downtown Columbus?
John,
it's the same thing at a different scale.
Those are secondary and tertiary issues, though, and those are issues of process, and I don't totally disagree. And I challenged the mayor on that a couple of weeks ago when we talked about it before this last council meeting. I think that it probably would have behooved council to have actually talked to the individual higher education institutions and said, we're hearing from Bluefield State, and they want to come in, and they say they have a program that you're not doing. I got to be careful how I phrase that. Not that you can't do, but that you are not doing, and they feel that they can bring that program here. At the very least, make you aware. I think I would probably have asked, is it true that this is a program you are not offering? And so the process, absolutely. I mean, that's a critical part of it. But I think the bigger concerns I have about what Dr. Mosser was trying to claim were that there were $2 million a year in city costs that already have been agreed to, that this is going to be a giveaway to Bluefield State. And to the best of my knowledge, from having talked to quite a few people about this now, as I'm sure you have, that just isn't true. It just isn't true.
I'm not sure where he got those numbers from. I don't know, how he came to his figures, what led him to those figures. I don't know. Again, he went too far he could have gotten his point across. Again, Wheeling doesn't need to be what we see at the national level with we can talk through these things, but also understand for him to go up there with that aggressive approach, he had to be very upset. That's just not something that you do without being extremely bothered by this process. I'm not going to condone his approach. I'm not going to condone what he said. I would hope he had full support from his board to do this. I've assumed that he did. But I think, the things I take away, and I think what council needs to think about moving forward, again, when they run into situations like this, just a good reminder that you've got to effectively communicate these things. This is, no matter what, you knew that the local colleges were not going to be happy with a potential competitor coming into the market, no matter what.
And again, no question they should have had that conversation in order to just smooth things over. I don't disagree. And I will say that this is an ongoing, I won't say a problem, an issue this council has, is that sometimes they don't understand that while they know this is just in the early stages of conversation, to the public, or even in this case to the other colleges and universities, it sounds like a done deal. I go back to the first proposal for a parking garage in downtown Wheeling, which became such a big to-do, and it was all just basically, well, here's one thing we might do. Let's talk about this, here are the details, but it wasn't a done deal. And I think sometimes council doesn't understand that the public views this with a different eye than what they do when they know that. And I think that's the case here as well. This is a non-binding memorandum of understanding. It basically just means we're going to continue to talk. Could it have been handled better? I think so. But again, I'm still really disturbed by the what seem to be absolutely misrepresented facts that Dr. Mosser presented. And although this is not a big deal to me, and I don't think I've mentioned this before, Washington Northern has also been given some good support from the city of Wheeling with the closing of the street behind their property there in downtown Wheeling, and the working with the city on their new I won't say call this not just a parking area, it's a landscaped area.
It's almost like a little park area in some ways, like an outdoor learning area.
The city has been extremely helpful to them in that way as well, which is just another reason why it strikes me as the aggressiveness that he took towards this just seems to be a little off base. So what happens now, John?
Well,
what happens now?
I think the first thing that's got to happen is, okay, what happened Tuesday is over and done with. Okay, the local colleges need to, everyone involved, now they all need to be adults now and say, okay, there obviously is some type of a need in the local business community for programs that maybe aren't specifically being offered up here. They need to, there's no doubt that Bluefield State did some type of diligence to come up, unless there's some conspiratorial plan beyond what you and I can think of for revenge. This wasn't just a pie in the sky thing. Bluefield State had some real data to say that they thought their programs could help businesses in this area and help them in the process as well with students. And so if that need is there, the local colleges, West Liberty, Wheeling University, Northern, need to get together with Bluefield maybe, or at least with the businesses Bluefield has talked to, and find out what programs we need to be offering or how we need to adjust our programs to meet the needs of the business community. I think that's number one. That's got to be the silver lining.
John, shouldn't that be done as a regular basis? I mean, should they be forced into...
Sure. I would hope it always is. I mean, that's what community colleges are about, and I think West Virginia Northern, generally speaking, has done that very well. They adapt quickly. That's what they're meant to do. They, when casinos came in, they quickly ramped up to offer, table gaming classes, and oil and gas, and to offer roustabout classes, etc. That's what they're supposed to do. So that should that be happening? Yes. Does it appear that it might not have been happening here? I mean, maybe. Again, unless there's something much more to this that Bluefield is here for different reasons or coming in here for different reasons. So that's got to happen. And and I think too, number two, at some point, I said it earlier, the city's got to remember, and you just reiterated it, that they've got to be, they're again, I look at Franklin Evans, and I think of how I would feel if I were him. First week on the job, I get hit in the face with this. Where did I just move to? What is going on here? I mean, this is how things work in West Virginia. That just, it sets a bad tone for future working relationships between the city and our local colleges, particularly in this case, West Liberty. So, where does it go from here? I think it's got to go forward from here with adult conversations, first with the business community if there's unmet needs, second with, more openness from council, and a better understanding from council that these decisions have real-world ramifications. This is a direct, these universities and colleges are looking at this as a direct affront to them, especially since they weren't in the loop prior to. That's a real problem. The council needs to understand that, and again, at some point before signing any type of agreement with Bluefield, they should have brought it in. And if Bluefield said no, they can't know until we're ready to announce it, then you say then the deal's off the table because these are the folks we have to live with.
We know what Bluefield's going to do, and they haven't signed an agreement. They've signed an agreement to continue talking about how they can work together. It's not as if there's a deal on the table, and we do know what Bluefield State is going to do. I mean, to me, the biggest question that should have been asked ahead of time. I have to move on here quickly, John, but sure. The biggest question asked ahead of time should have been of the local colleges, and they should have met with them. I agree. Do you have this accredited program in place right now? Because if not, Bluefield State does. Don't tell me you can do it. I'm sure you can. You're smart people. Is Bluefield State saying they've got something they can offer to our community that is needed and that you're not doing? And if so, certainly it's worth pursuing, I think.
Howard, it sounds like you're a big fan of Bluefield State.
I am not a big fan of
Well, then, I mean, our local folks are the ones who live here. I mean, we've got to, again, this comes back to just, I totally agree with everything you're saying. The businesses are the ones that have to come out here at the end of saying, how do we service these jobs, and how do we get students ready for jobs that are available for them when they come out of college or they come out with this 2-year degree. So that's the conversation that needs to go next, and that's where the discussion should have been earlier. There's no doubt about it.
We'll have to have the discussion a bit later, and I've been talking to several other council members. I can tell you, as I think you have as well, John, there are some council members now that are beginning to rethink their position on this.
Yeah.
So next week, I'm sure council is going to get into this, and they may find that it's not the fast track.
They don't meet
that
again
thought
for
it was
another
gonna
week
be.
and a half, so they've got some time to think about it.
All right, John, got to run. Thanks.
See you, Howard.
Appreciate it. Let's grab Bob Westfall here real quick and see what's going on at the Big 7 this morning. Good morning, Bob.
Morning, Howard. How are you?
It's a Friday. You know how I feel on Fridays. It's going to be a great weekend. Sun is out. It's going to be a nice warm weekend. Not today, but a warm weekend. All in all, I'm feeling good.
It's going to be nice. So we'll get out and enjoy it. It's something Aaron and Dr. Dave, Zach's actually off, but they'll be tracking that all weekend. Really, it'll be an easy weekend for them. It looks like it's going to be pretty good. But some of the other things we're working on, we're going to have an interview with U.S. Representative David McKinley for the 1st District here in West Virginia. He sponsored some opioid legislation earlier this week. We're going to find out about that legislation. As we continue to say, there continues to be an epidemic within the pandemic. We could still see record numbers of deaths from the opioid addiction situation. A few weeks ago, I think we had 6 here in Wheeling within a 48-hour span. So that's something that's continuing today. Something that really needs checked on, and we've kind of let it slide to the back burner. So we will be talking to the congressman about that legislation as well. I think we may try to slide in an update on the Violence Against Women's Act that passed yesterday, but find out his reasonings for not voting for the act. So we'll have that with Congressman McKinley this afternoon to this evening. A couple other things. West Virginia's Attorney General, several other Attorney Generals, Ohio as well, are fighting the Biden administration on whether the states have rights to cut taxes within using the Recovery Act money that they have. So we're going to follow up on that. We're going to just kind of have somebody explain that to us, exactly what that means. And so we'll follow up on that. And March Madness kicks off tonight, so that's going to be everywhere.
Yeah, that's going to be the big. Everybody's going to settle in and watch those games. Yep. All right, Bob, I appreciate people can check things out at noon, 5, 6, 10, 11, 5:30 statewide show, and always at WTRF.com. And just because it's a Friday doesn't mean the TV7 news team isn't working hard, so be sure and keep on top of things all weekend long as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. You guys have a good weekend.
All right, you too. Appreciate it. Bob Westfall from the Big 7, WTRF TV. All right, Kirchhoff's got the calm coming up next. Time for me to say sayonara, see you, bye-bye, farewell. I got to go. I got to get out of here. Good Lord willing, creeks don't rise, back phone doesn't ring, don't get impeached, don't retire, ticker keeps on ticking, don't eat too much. It's always the dangerous one. And most importantly, Teddy says, it's okay, you can go back to work on Monday, Granddad. I shall return Monday morning, 7 o'clock. Another go-around of the big gig. Are you back with me, Biff?
I'll be back ready to start another week.
All right, we'll just keep on doing it till we get it right.
That'll be a long time.
Indeed.
Let me drop. Cause outside, as you must know, no, I can't let you go.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
The ABC News is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
All right, Biffy, have a good weekend. If you need me for anything, I should be around. I'm going to do a little work today. Check on that game for Sunday. That's a good point. I don't know either. I should, but I don't, so. Yeah. We start that at 10? 11. We start that at 11, right? Yeah, right. Yeah, we do that at 11, so. Yeah. Well, if that's pregame, we could join the game after pregame. Too much. Yeah. Yep, that's right. Okay. All right. Well, if you need anything from me, give me a call. I'll be around all weekend and probably outside playing a good bit. Not today so much, a little cool, but the rest of the weekend probably go to the park or some other place. All right. Yeah, it's going to be a good weekend, so great. All right, talk to you Monday, if not before. Thanks for your help. I appreciate it. Bye.
A dozen other women during her 2-hour-long interview. That's ABC's Aaron Katersky. The trial of former Minneapolis cop Derek Chauvin will not be delayed. It will not be moved out of Hennepin County, as defense lawyers requested. He's charged in the death of George Floyd. You're listening to ABC News.
Indeed knows unexpected demand can stretch your business thin.
Leon speaking.
Like at Leon's Plumbing.
Sorry, quickest we can get there is next Friday.
To stay out of hot water, he needs to get started hiring right away.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. And the moment you sponsor a job on Indeed, you get a short list of quality candidates from our resume database. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get a $75 credit for your first sponsored job post. Terms and conditions apply.
Switch to T-Mobile for Business and get up to 90 days of service free via virtual rebate on your business plan. You get a great deal, the largest 5G network, and first-class benefits like Microsoft 365 on us. It's better for business and only with T-Mobile for Business. Limited time offer. Stop in store for details. Plus taxes and fees for some plans. Virtual Express